Okay, welcome to this week's episode of Kuden Radio. Anyway, if you're a first-time listener, welcome to the family. Anyway, hey, it's dai-shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts and the Bujinkan Mori no Tora Dojo. I'll try to get my tongue in the right place, and that should make things work a little bit better this time. So, anyway, so. We just came out of spring camp 2025, went phenomenally well. As usual, had a loaded session on Friday. People's work schedules come and go, whatnot. Had some people not show up, those kind of things. But that's okay. A bunch of people ordered the videos, pre-ordered the videos. I have to be very, very clear about that. So James will begin working on just a bare edit, right? Most of what you're getting is the raw video for the weekend. As I explained to the students who were there, who, if they were there for the whole weekend, they get the videos. You're going to see a lot of the footage. I mean, we're not cutting out everything. So all it is like the dancing monkeys, the instructors, right? Demonstrating techniques. Again, minor edits, cutting out prep time, those kind of things that might end up being on the video. But I leave the student training time in there as well, and not just little tidbits here or there, because there's a lot of extra benefit to those. One, for the students who were there, they can watch themselves from kind of a third person perspective, and everybody else can not only see, right, what other folks are doing, but there's lots of moments where either Shidoshi Golem, Shidoshi Whistler, myself, help students by making certain corrections and whatnot. So that's all a benefit, because often when you get videos, they're very sanitized, right? You get the lessons themselves, but what you miss are common mistakes that people can make. Right. So anyway, that being said, I'll talk about that a little bit here in a bit. But tonight's episode explores a hidden reality that most martial artists, right, even many leaders, right, and business world, anybody that's in any kind of endeavor that's long term, right? There's this hidden reality that a lot of folks don't recognize until it's too late. Right. And every long-term student, right, anybody that's around for a significant amount of time, we'll talk about what that means as well, eventually reaches a point where conventional perseverance or stick-to-itiveness or whatever alone, right, is not enough, right? They end up encountering what I call hidden gates or hidden problems, right? To turning points or forks in the road, right? These are decision points where they're going to have to choose between mastery and mediocrity. And while there are multiple points along the way, we're going to be taking a look at some external factors this time around, right? And when we're looking at these, it's not just about enduring hardship, right? It's about learning to outlast distraction, outlast ego, and even the social friction that can make or break your progress. I'll talk about some of that as well during this episode. So if you've ever wondered why some quit or stagnate while others keep growing, during this episode, we're going to pull back the proverbial curtain, right, and reveal what truly separates those who endure the knowledge, right? We'll talk about that as well, right? From those who surrender to convenience. All right. So we'll talk more about that as we go. But let's just go ahead and officially get things started. Okay. So the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be?
That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to Kuden Radio.
All right, so let's go ahead and kick this off. I'll bring up my notes here in a minute, and I'll also check to see who's on and whatnot. But for anybody who's new, right, whether you're new to the live broadcast here or you found us on one of the podcast directories, or I guess they're not even podcast. I mean, we're on podcast directories, but um, we're we're on some bigger and bigger places. Like recently, we just found ourselves on iHeartRadio. But if you're listening audio only, if this is your first time, um, I'm not the guy that just picked random cool sounding Japanese terms. Okay, so Kuden is a Japanese term that is more closely related to more of the oral transmission, teacher to student, within traditional Japanese martial arts. Okay, there's three different aspects to training. Right, most people are most familiar with the concept of taiden, even if they don't know the word. Right, taiden means body transmission, and what that is the teacher demonstrates or presents the lesson, or some senior does it, and so it's they show you how to move the body around and how to do things, and then you duplicate that and whatnot, right? And that by and large is where people gravitate. But these traditional martial arts and development systems have other aspects. Okay, um, and often they're treated very minimally, haphazardly. Just a smaller percentage of folks that end up, I mean, you don't have to train with the grandmaster to find a teacher that knows the deeper lessons, the broader lessons, or the things that are not just about fighting. They're not just about martial arts. They're not just about self defense, not in the conventional sense, right? That's why I prefer the term self protection over self defense, because to most people, self defense is uh, to them it means the same thing as fighting, right? It's there's almost no difference, right? Um, but Hatsumi Sensei very often would teach something. Um, we're doing physical training, and then he would have this discussion. He would kind of break out into the principles, the concepts. He would reference poetry, or he'd reference uh, a foundation lesson in like a knoll play, or something like that, right? And then he would discuss some, or a couple of reference points within life, or our jobs, or our families, or something like that. And he would say something about the technique, or some principle or concept that's being used, some control point, and then he would say, not just a good martial arts idea, okay, good life idea, right? Um, Shrey Sensei, one of the master teachers that I trained with quite a bit, his big focus is on balance, but he would always say, no matter what we were discussing, right? It could be walking, it could be a martial arts technique, it could be a way of thinking about something, and he would always say, "Good ninja idea." I think so, right? And that was always code for across all realms, not just fighting. Okay, and anyway, so there's Taiden, body, right, and then there's uh, Kuden, which is it's not written in the scrolls. The teacher understood it or got it Kuden from his teacher, um, and so this oral transmission, right? It's very often a very close, very personal teacher to student kind of thing, right? And that's where this comes from. But also Kuden as a podcast, as this approach goes, also includes this third aspect, shinden, heart or spirit transmission. And in the East, I know here in the West we like to say mind, body, spirit, but shin in Japanese, right, is very much tied to both mind and spirit, right? It's this core idea or this core of who we are, right? In Mikyo, we have this Hanya Shinkyo, uh, or in Sanskrit, Prajnaparamita, and so there's that's Prajnaparamita Hridaya, right? Hridaya is this Hanya in Japanese, but it's Shin. It's the heart, but not the core, not the organ, right? It's the heart of something. It's if we're talking about us, it's what makes us who we are, right? And so it's a combination of heart and mind, or spirit and mind. But Shinden is more tied to life and experiential connection. And very often, it's not the teacher speaking, it's the student watching how the teacher lives, how the teacher makes decisions. This integrity, this congruency, right? And how it manifests in other areas, right? And so we can extrapolate that kind of stuff from the way Hatsumi Sensei, not what he writes in his books or not what he's saying, but there's this underlying lesson, right, about being, right, about being. So there's Miwo Shinobu, which is the body capable of enduring, right? There's Kokoro Shinobu, right? Which I'll talk about that here in just a bit, which is Kokoro can also mean heart, right? But it can also just point to mind, right? How we think about things, our knowledge, right? The knowledge, the knowing. And so Kokoro Shinobu is the mind capable of enduring. Okay. Enduring what? Hardship, but that comes in many different forms, right? And then there is Shikyo Shinobu, right? Which is all, again, it's not just spirit, but it's this perception and this deep level kind of thing, right? Can we keep going when it's more of a stress, emotion, when confusion's going on, frustration, external factors, those kind of things. Okay. Uh, so it's, is it head? Is it heart? Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk more about the Kokoro Oroshinobu here in a bit, because uh, I don't know if I used this title or not. I guess I did, Enduring the Knowledge. But I'm not going to be talking about the confusion and frustration that people can often have in their attempt to learn, in their attempt to get their head wrapped around new concepts and new ways of thinking and things like that. We're going to be looking at something very, very different. Okay. So, but before I jump into that, before I dive into things, let's go ahead and bring James up. Who do we have, James? I see the numbers are slowly trickling in on the live side of things. And I get it. Some of you live in different parts of the world. Sometimes, work schedules, just time zones, right? You end up having to jump in late or whatever it is. Okay. So I'm cool. James, who do we have on? He's already said hi. He's already checked in.
So Jared, Dave,
Cool.
Maui, and Jimmy have all checked in.
Cool. Dave is in Dave Fletcher.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just surprised last week by Dave. He traveled cross country to pick up some of his stuff. He used to live in New York, so north of me, quite a bit north of me. Now he lives in Montana. So he won this month's unofficial contest as to who drives the farthest for class. And technically, I guess he was on his way back from New York because he had a trailer full of stuff, but stopped in, did a class. That was really, really cool. Some of my long distance students, the distance, I mean, I've got Carl living on the other side of the planet, and some of you guys that listen in, you're on the other side of the planet. So this is a cool thing, right? Where we can we can connect, right? So we live in strange times, but also really cool times. Um, I just responded to somebody's post. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. That be careful judging me based on what I post. There's much more to me than the kind of things that I post. And my comment to that was, for a lot of people, that's a really good thing, right? It's a good thing that I know them, and so my perception of them isn't stuck on, especially the person who posted. Right? It's a good thing I know much more about you than the way you post. Otherwise, we couldn't be friends. Anyway, so cool beans. All right, so is that it, James? That's who we have at the moment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so some of you guys, especially the ones that just checked in, right? You're regulars, right? And sometimes we don't find out who's a regular until they contact me about doing long-term training or connecting in a program or coming in for a seminar. Or, I don't know. We have some kind of a but we touch base, right? And uh, but either way, right? We've got these folks that binge listen and follow and whatnot. So if you are a regular in whatever form, right? Again, the folks that are on audio only, you often don't get the newest episode for a week or three based on what's going on here and how long it takes for us to get the kind of things processed and up so that the Google and I don't know the cyber guides kind of grab things and get them put into the podcast directories. But either way, if you've been following along and you kind of keep up with the different episodes, at first glance, this enduring and why people quit, and this generally this kind of theme, right, or what stunts people's growth and those kind of things. This may, at first glance, right, seem very very similar to just something we did like 4 episodes ago, episode 256, because we're at 260 now. So 256, where the premise or the theme for that episode was how students can get stuck in white belt thinking, white belt proficiency, regardless of their belt level, right? Even in the black belt levels, they can still be processing things the way Hatsumi Sensei would have identified. And he's used this term a lot, right? Where regardless of their belt level, right, they still think like a white belt. And I don't mean they know what they don't know, and that's what drives them forward. Not that characteristic. What we're discussing was how people can get stuck in form. They can get stuck in like they learn a lesson and then they never continue to develop that because they accept the lesson given to a white belt as it, or they accept or assume that the way they interpreted it, the way they learned it, the way it was presented to them, or whatever, as a brand new student who knew nothing, right? Then that's the way it's always going to be. Okay. And that just strips the life out of all these things. Folks that were in for spring camp this past weekend got a handle on this. As a matter of fact, we worked with Spear for a little bit. I mean, who does that, right? I mean, Sensei, I thought your focus was on, real world self defense and modern and all that. Why the hell are we doing Spear? Well, on a real base level, from a kind of an episode 256 premise, right? Spear has a certain cool factor to it, right? And people will gravitate to it because they want to learn this stuff, and or they only ever want to do it classically or whatever. But the premise, I think I just did a couple of sessions, not a lot, right? So introduce the the foundational lessons, and of course with everything else that we were doing for camp, there's only so much to kind of squeeze in there. So some kamae, a ski, right? This piercing, thrusting kind of action, and then controlling space and being able to shift and maneuver. I think I highlighted two critical points that are fundamental to both swordsman and spear, naginata, those kind of things that if we're working on precision, if we can catch that, right? Again, this is a classical swordsman, spearman kind of thing where the whole idea kind of fit in with our Kotoryu theme, even though we were approaching it from Kukishinden spear, that we want to create a collapse, a system or a function collapse as quickly as possible. So it's like a point on the wrist, the wrist joint, right? If I can make a cut here with my blade initially, right? Well, the wrist assembly stops working, okay, and then if that cut angle can be in line with the next thing, right, and so one of the initial lessons I learned with that, as well as sword, was that every time we make contact or we connect, right, with the bad guy, right, he gets tagged 3 times, and this is not about points. And when I say tagged, I mean that very, very lightly. What I mean is, every time we engage with him, he gets cut, hit, stabbed, whatever, 3 times. And so that's a very high level precision kind of thing, because not only do I want to cut this, but I want this cut lined up with the next thing I'm going to go after. Because again, in a bad situation, we lose under the adrenal response, fight, flight, freeze, those kind of things. We lose a lot, if not all, fine motor skill, including thought. So if it's not ingrained in muscle memory, and we're not taking that into account in our training, and we think we're going to be all like finesse wise and whatnot, like Katsumi Sensei or master teachers, there's a lot that has to go into getting to that level where we don't get stressed, right? The adrenal response doesn't fire to the same degree. And so we get some of that fine skill back. That's not for most people, right? They need to pressure test their skills and things like that, and that's just not something that a lot of people want to do, especially those who have been indoctrinated into the soft training method, which has its purpose and has its place in training. Mostly, it was it was introduced to not cause international problems where either Japanese instructors, right, foreign nationals visiting the States or Germany or wherever the seminar, the Taikai was going on, injured, right, a whatever that country, a U.S. citizen, whatever, right, or one of us traveling to Japan and training, and then we get injured there. The state departments of individual countries and whatnot get involved, insurance issues. Even if you have fully paid insurance there, just like they have in Japan, like how's this getting taken care of? Because it's not as easy as people think it is. But it's an international incident if a foreign national or a visiting, right, it doesn't matter which way the foreign national goes, right, gets injured in or injures a citizen of another country. It's most people have no clue about those kind of things. But anyway, so this soft training came into place both as a safety mechanism to make sure people weren't hurting themselves, because new people or people who misunderstand techniques or their skill proficiency is just not what it should be, or they just have no self-control, tend to cause collateral damage, right? And so we want to remove that, but we also want to make sure that we're not creating a international incident. Okay. So anyway, um, so that but the let me just get back to the difference between these two episodes so that it doesn't seem like I'm rehashing the same things, right? We're still coming from the perspective of endurance, right? And persevering and staying on track. But in the previous episode, right, in 256, the premise was on internal factors, right? Um, us getting in our own way, right? Through misunderstanding, through ego, whatever. Okay. This one, I'm going to spend more time on uh, external factors. Okay. External factors. I've got a note someplace, but I don't want to just keep jumping around for these. So anyway, let's just roll right into where I really want to go with this. Okay. So the title of this episode is Enduring the Knowledge. Okay. Um, but I'm not talking about the knowledge of what we're learning, right? The knowledge behind the skills, the history, those kind of things. Um, Along the way, we can find that maybe we misunderstood something, and then we get this lesson that's designed to fix it, and now, right, there's could be some cognitive dissonance, or we learn that something is true, we find out something, right, knowledge, um, but it kind of creates some tension, right? It could be an ego kind of thing. It could be something that distracts us, right, away from something else. There's a huge one that I want to talk about during this episode, but also it could be something or some things that other people are doing, right? And I want to address that as well. Okay. And these things can derail students. They can frustrate them or um, create some disillusionment, pop the bubble, whatever, and then create a situation where the students like, shit. I mean, did I make a bad choice here? Is this worth pursuing? Maybe I should just go and do something else. Whatever. Okay. So, but the big difference between these two is uh, that previous episode was what students do or misunderstandings that can keep them, regardless of belt rank, regardless of anything like that, can keep them in a lower level of proficiency. Right. We'll touch on that a little bit, but uh, we'll, we'll, we'll get past that quickly, I think. What I really want to focus on with this one um, is these other factors that can get in the way. All right. So, and it's very, very common. As a matter of fact, I have some statistics for you to show you just how common um, this problem is. Okay. And these distractions could be martial arts related. They could be teacher related. They could be life related. Right. Um, but there's a lot of things that one of my teachers used to say, one of the things that one of the reasons we have to develop endurance, perseverance, this nin, right? Not just a perspective, right? This trait, this characteristic, is because, and these were his words, to combat the all the things in the world that can conspire, right, to derail us, to cause us to fail. Okay, so, but it's actually based on. It's not the same. So for those of you who are in my training, you're in my inner circle group. Um, Specifically, the if you're in the Ninpo Mastery level program and you're in the Friday coaching group, right? Everybody's in the same club, so to speak, but we have different coaching calls during the week, and some folks at the mastery level, they get one interactive coaching call that we do, and so it's a open Q&A. Plus, I also teach on some aspect depending on the week. Each week has a theme. So this would have been for the Friday group or the Ninpo Elite who get both of the coaching calls. This comes out of this past Friday's morning group call. So in that inner circle coaching, we explored a deeper meaning behind this kokoro shinobu, right? And I just mentioned that earlier, right? The mind capable of enduring. And so, again, kokoro shinobu, enduring the mental side, the mind capable of enduring through confusion, misunderstanding, frustration, those kind of things where we're trying to learn the lessons, right? We're trying to remember everything from kamae names to how is kotoryu different from gyokoryu, that kind of stuff, right? And it can seem like a lot, right? But deeper than that is it's we can see it as a parallel, right? Um, but I really want to present this so it can help serious students and those seeking real growth understand why most never reach mastery, why most quit early. Okay, so it's also a glimpse into the kind of high level stuff that my guys get, and why it's different from what we might call casual martial arts training or self-help philosophy, that kind of stuff. Right. So, what I want to do with this one is I want to start off by looking at what I'm going to call two paths in martial arts training. I mean, it's really two paths in life as well, but we'll kind of start where 256 that episode four episodes ago left off. So we'll start there and then we'll go deeper, right? So within the martial arts realm, right? And again, and life as well, but within this realm, we have really two paths. And one of the things that I really had this is one of those things that hit me that I had to endure was watching certain people get promoted to higher and higher and higher ranks faster, 6 dan in 6 years, which is one of the reasons why this system has been made fun of quite a bit or not taken seriously by like really senior level practitioners in other arts, because there's no way. I mean, the amount of time between, I mean, it might be consistent and fairly, 3 to 5 years or whatever for first degree black belt, but it's serious amounts of time between dan levels. And here, some people go to Japan once or twice a year and they're walking away with a new dan rank every time they go. Right. So somebody could be promoted to dan ranks if they go every, twice a year. They could end up jumping black belt ranks twice a year, right? It is what it is, right? I believe that's changing because I've gotten word that the new soke, several of them, are they're going to be putting some significant standards in. People will have to demonstrate proficiency. It's not just going to be the honor-based thing based on the belief that people that are in training for the same amount of time should be about the same amount of rank, because, of course, if you're, both consistently practicing, then your skill sets should be the same. Yeah. Okay. That's not the way Westerners think. Westerners think if you give me a rank, then I must be worth that. So I'm going to hang out my shingle and dance in the street and proclaim my the virtues of my wonder. Japanese thinking and Western thinking doesn't always work. Okay. Anyway, so two paths, right? Two paths. So the first path is what we could call rank focused practitioners. Okay. And so, I've been mentioning this book because I'm always doing my own study and progress as well. So please don't see me standing on some kind of like stage or behind a podium or on some kind of uh, platform or whatever. All my training is done and I know all this stuff and I'm constantly going deeper into things. And one of those things is to pull a book off the shelf or pull out a video from way back in the day or pull my notes out and to go deeper and deeper into these things. And recently it's been in going back through again another reading of Hatsumi Sensei's book, Ninpo Wisdom for Life. And there's tons of life stuff in there, but it's also, related to everyday things as well. And so if you have the book, I'm actually referencing something that begins on page 14 and then bleeds over into 15. But he makes a reference to mirroring students, right? The teacher mirroring students. Now, it's not it's not difficult to understand how students mirror teachers, right? As a matter of fact, we've always seen throughout the years that if we knew the teachers and you understood taijutsu and whatnot, you could almost always identify a teacher, a student, uh, and who his teacher was, or who her teacher was, whatever, right? Because of the way they move. Because students end up inheriting movement qualities, good and bad, right? Qualities from the teacher. Okay, and it's just an interesting thing, right? Students mirroring the teacher. But one of the things I learned from Hatsumi Sensei was the importance, both for the teacher's sanity and for the student's progress, right? Was for the teacher to mirror the student. And so, again, I know I already started this little conversation here about the two paths, but let me just back up here just a little bit. So, I did mention that I saw lots of people just like fly through the ranks, right? And for others, myself and my close peers, our progress was much slower, rank wise. Rank wise. Okay. But truth be told, we weren't all that concerned about rank. Right? To us, rank was an indicator to the teacher as to where we were in the process. Right. What we that way the teacher knew, like based on the belt around our waist or whatever, or the number, what we should have learned, what we should know, and what we should be working on at that given point, what we're heading toward next, right? As opposed to this vague, he's got a good heart, so we're going to give him this rank. Or you've been around for this amount of time, so we're going to give you this rank. Things get just way too subjective. So the importance there is so the teacher doesn't make a correction for a student and speak beneath their level, right? Tell them a bunch of stuff they already know. But they also don't speak way over their head in concepts that they haven't built the knowledge, understanding, or developed the skill proficiency to even be able to approach yet. Okay, so but there was this was more of a rank to time or rank to proficiency, because what really threw a lot of us off was watching people fly through the ranks, but their proficiency didn't match, right? I don't know. I could say egos matched, but we'll leave it at that. But it just seemed like, Sensei would, I've seen these guys getting patted on the head, right? Big old smiles and stuff. And, oh, what's your rank? Oh, okay, now you're this kind of thing. Where other ones, he and master teachers and whatnot would just be much more critical of mistakes, right? Make you work on it much longer, that kind of thing. But the mirroring I came to find was people got promoted or not based on what their own focus was. So we had rank focused practitioners, and we had skill, resilience, proficiency focused practitioners. Okay. And so he mirrored that by giving them what it was that they wanted. Okay. And this has nothing to do with fairness. This actually has to do with a teacher understanding that if a student isn't around, if a student quits, then there's no possibility of them getting lessons or no possibility of them shifting perspective. So now this has caused students to go away because people say they want the truth, but when they're hit with cold, hard truth, yeah, that everything changes. Okay? Um, but the skill for a teacher is to be able to keep a student around longer. Okay, to get them to procrastinate quitting. Right. Everybody procrastinates. Everybody quits at some point. Right. Some of us won't quit until we fall over dead, but everybody quits. Everybody procrastinates. So one of the jobs of a teacher, and I teach this in our instructor training program, is to get a student to procrastinate quitting. Okay? How's that for ninja thinking? So the reality, though, the lesson for the instructor or instructor wannabe is sometimes you have to give a student what they want to keep them around long enough for them to get what they need. Okay. Well, isn't that watering things down? Isn't that, letting the student lead or whatever? Yeah, I know. But what did I just say? If the student quits, then there's no chance that they're going to get it. If they quit thinking that the system sucks, they are probably not even going to go off to another teacher. Okay. They're not going to see it as that. Right. How many people do you know that quit a certain martial art and said, well, that doesn't work, and they went off to another martial art? But was it really the martial art, or was it the way the teacher taught? Or was it who they were and what they were expecting, and they weren't getting that from that teacher or not getting it fast enough? But they're going to go someplace else, and then when you hear from it or hear about it later, what they tell you is, well, that wasn't for me, right? The art sucks, or that doesn't really work, or it didn't work for me, or whatever, when it may not have anything to do with the art itself. Okay. But anyway, let's examine very, very quickly these two, and then we'll keep moving on. All right. So path number one, all right, two paths in this martial arts training kind of thing, right? So one, you have rank focused practitioners, right? So these folks are driven by validation, milestones, and what you might call the external journey. Okay. And so often the first to struggle when the process becomes less entertaining, right? Less easy, or when life stressors kind of kick in, right? Is what I talked about with my guys on Friday. Um, there's so much in this art, right? Life mastery stuff, as well as the self protection things. If nothing else, right? For my students, they have to come to class an average of twice a week, right? Most come 3 times a week, but either way, they only come to class for an hour. My black belt shinobi kai people, it's an hour and a half. It's like a mini vacation in the middle of the day. You got all these things that you got to balance and take care of, and all that kind of stuff, and all these demands on us from the outside world, from other people, right? And so this gives us an opportunity to drop that, right? And be a student and do something for us, but also the lessons, right? It's not just about how to duck a punch or how to not get kicked or how to, cut with a knife or whatever. But it's It's in how to handle pressure. It's how to stay calm under pressure. It's how to focus, how to manage and prioritize, and those kind of things, and learn and hone skills that people have talked about from our earliest ages, but no schools teach that. They say they teach it, but they don't. The teacher says you need to be more confident. You need to focus. You need to, okay, but there's no lessons behind it. Right? Class allows us to do that. Right? It allows us to take a breather from life. It allows us to, work on these other things. So when I say life stressors pop up, what I mean is um, there's certain changes in life or the job or whatever, and something has to give or change or adjust or whatever for balance to be there. And more often than not, and it's been my experience more often than not, because I've been teaching since 1987. So where were you in 1987? Anyway, students will often drop their training because I just don't have time. I don't have the energy. This stuff is really just pulling it. So instead of taking, okay, look, don't come to class this week. If you need next week as well, right? Fix that, right? And then get back, or cut your training back to 1 day a week or whatever, right? Steal time outside of class to practice. Doesn't have to be 20, 30 minutes. Maybe you don't have that. Maybe you have 30 seconds between entering the bathroom or the restroom or the lavatory at work or whatever, doing your business, and then 30 seconds before you walk back out the door and reset and go. And it could be restroom, could be your office, whatever, and do a couple of things, right? Shift gears, focus on these things, whatever, right? But when people never say they quit. Very few people in my teaching career have ever told me they were quitting, right? They'll fade away. What do they call it now? What do they call it, James? Ghosting? I don't know. What anyway, right? What they usually say is they're taking time off. And I truly believe that they believe that they're taking time off. But here's what happens when people take time off. They're taking time off so they can free up the time that it took to travel to class, do class, travel home. They're freeing up that block of time to solve this other problem. But the problem is they don't understand how the brain works with habit development. And so we allocate time, or we reallocate the time that would have been class time, travel to and from, for this thing that needs to be taken care of. Okay, great. And initially there's this pull because we've stepped out of our habit, out of our routine, right? And we really do want to go to class. Okay, I got to take care of this thing. Okay, right. Initially, right? Again, a couple of classes, week or two, not a big deal. There's going to be that agitation. But what ends up happening over time is it becomes easier to fill that time with the next fire that needs to be put out, with the next thing. It becomes easier to go next time. I'll take care of this time I'll go next class, right? And then eventually what ends up happening is the new habit is filling in that time. Okay. So enduring the pressure, those stressors, and not giving up the medicine that is designed to give us the lessons to make it easier and easier to handle those life stressors that keep popping up. And I get it. I took time off. Well, when time off is now months or years, okay? Now, did you really take time off? Okay. And this is up to everybody, right? You split your own hairs. I don't care, right? But there can be time away from the teacher in literal space But if you're reading, if you're going through in today's world, if you're going through videos, back in the day, I had to go through notes or read and reread the books and whatnot. In which case, my teacher was still talking to me, right? Because that was my mindset, right? The words were coming off. This was the conveyance method, right? The books and now the videos of today were the scrolls of centuries ago, right? But the teacher's voice is still there. The lessons are still happening. I can hear them reminding me when I'm doing my ichimonji, when I'm doing my roll, right? Be careful. Watch when you do this. Put your hand in a certain place, that kind of thing. And if we're still taking the time, right? My schedule has shifted in a way where I can't make it to class right now, right? For the next couple of weeks, I'm on this shift work and whatnot, right? So I come home late or before I go. It doesn't match up with class time, but I slip in some practice. Then I haven't taken time off. I have had to shift the way I engage with my training. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is life stressors or whatever it is, right? Honey doesn't like it. Honey won't let me. That's a bad life choice. That's like being married to a parent figure. Anyway, I digress. I apologize. If the thinking doesn't turn into actual action, because warriors are people of action, it doesn't turn into action, and it's just a lamenting or a every once in a while I remind myself, I gotta get back to class. That's what turns into months and years and decades and those kind of things, right? So myself and my peers, I mean, we were in the military or we were in law enforcement or whether it was shift work or being transferred someplace halfway around the world or whatever. That's how all these training groups popped up, because we created a microcosm, long distance satellite, right, from the teacher, and then we figured out how to get back and forth. And I'm not knocking anybody. It's not about that, okay? But the rank focused practitioners, that's what they're focused on, right? They're focused on the validation. They're focused on rank. They're focused on next milestone, next, that kind of thing. It's the external journey, and so these folks tend to be the first ones to struggle when the process becomes more difficult to get to class, more difficult to get with the teacher, whatever, right? Military guys were someplace for a year to 3 years, and then you get orders and you're shipped somewhere else, or something catastrophic happens and you end up going someplace, right? And now you're nowhere close to the teacher, or you've moved that far off. So now it's just too difficult to get to class, right? Some eventually evolve beyond rank attachment. Unfortunately, many, if not most, don't. Okay. So here's another hard truth for folks, right? That if you have designs on, people contact me all the time, right? I want to earn my black belt because I want to be an instructor and I want to run a dojo. Okay. Great. Well, there's a huge difference between teaching and running a dojo, okay? Because either you're paying for it or the students through their tuition are paying for it. The doors have to stay open. Otherwise, you won't be a teacher and you won't be having a dojo for very long. There's just certain realities about that. Okay. And so the hard reality is, I don't turn these folks away. Okay. Hatsumi Sensei didn't turn those folks away. Okay. They're learning things, absolutely learning things, right? And I'm going to benefit them to the best of my ability, but I have to keep in mind that they are rank oriented. Right? So I have to wire things in, and we have things wired into our program at the dojo that most do not. And we're going to be bringing some things back that we used to use, so that a student sees regular ongoing progress and feels like they are hitting milestones and they are getting closer to that next, right, rank, validation that this is worth it, those kind of things, right? Because that's important for these folks, right? But what's also true is that there are more of those, at least initially, right? Early on, okay? Because the biggest drop off is within the first 100 days. After that, it's 4 to 11 months, right? I got some statistics here for you in a bit, just to make it a little bit more hard and concrete across. And what I found during research was, while I accumulated a bunch of statistics and things that were done in different martial arts organizations, it was never done officially in ours, but I found it to be true over time, right? Because I track statistics, right? And so we can do it. We can only do as instructors as much as we can to keep somebody around. Ultimately, the choice is always each individual's. But there are these points of drop off, right? And we know that if we can get someone past a certain point, or they can get themselves past a certain point, their chances of staying with it increase exponentially, right? But the numbers of people that get to that point and then get to the next one and whatnot diminish significantly. Okay. Again, I'll talk about that here in a bit. But the reality for anybody that is running a martial arts school is that it's the rank focused practitioners, the ones who are looking for the these symbols of accomplishment. Okay. They keep the dojo doors open for that much, much, much smaller group that would still train with me if I closed the dojo and we trained in my backyard. Okay. And while a lot of people might want to argue that point, okay, the COVID shutdowns taught me two things. Okay. I've had online presence since when, James? Before 2008, right? And so it was easy for us when, all these things came around, right, to flip the switch and do virtual training with the students, right? So what I found was, one, most people won't even come to class, even if they don't have to leave their house. All they had to do is turn their TV or their computer on, and a lot did initially, but it trickled down really, really quickly, right? And in all honesty, the same is true with my long distance students as well, because a lot of them won't even turn their cameras on, or they don't show up for certain sessions. So I have to trust that they're training on their own. Okay? The other thing that COVID taught me was that as soon as that habit was broken and there was no accountability, right? They weren't going to, they quit. Right? We lost 75% of our student base very quickly through COVID. They just quit. Okay. So if that doesn't show me, I don't know what does. Right? No matter how serious somebody said they were. Okay. And we knew who was probably going to stay anyway. A couple of people surprised us, but for the most part, right? So we had the rank oriented people, right? And so what I watched Hatsumi Sensei do was give these people what they wanted. And sure enough, they stayed around longer till the rank numbers ran out. And then, So the second path is the path of the folks that rank wasn't the important part. It was the skill, the proficiency, and these folks were focused on resilience, right? That they wanted the benefits of what this particular system has to give. But this is not just our martial art. This is jiu-jitsu practitioners, whatever. Okay, and so this personality or this type of person is driven by capability, adaptability, and internal mastery. Right? They're not showcasing and they're not competing with other people based on the color, the number around the waist, or the size of the trophy, or whatever. Um, Theirs is a path of constant self competitiveness to be better tomorrow than they are today. That kind of thing, right? So they're driven by capability, right? What can I do? And they often think about ahead of time, where one thinks about what do I have to do and how well do I have to do it? Often, what's the minimum I have to do to get the next belt to the next stage, next certificate, whatever it is. Um, these folks often have a, I'm going to call I can't use the word agenda because the other folks have an agenda too. These folks have problems that need to be solved. Okay. So it's either they're worried about certain types of attackers, certain types of situations or scenarios, whatever. Right. And so the capability is wrapped around that. Or they know they're not looking for just enough. They know that you know, danger could show up how many different ways, right? So they need to be able to adapt to different things, right? Those kind of things. But either way, they're internally driven, right? They're not driven by external symbols or stepping stones or those kind of things. They're driven by a sense of self improvement and whatnot. Now, path one, can they transition over? Of course, of course. Can path two transition to path one? Yeah, yeah. Start getting a couple of belts, and people are patting them on the shoulder, or they get extra responsibility, or those kind of things, and or they start to develop a sense of confidence or comfortability that they've learned enough, and they think they can handle certain things. I had a guy once quit after he got his second belt. And he said he was done. He was one of those few people that actually like verbalized he was quitting. And I said, "But you only have this bell level." And he said, "Yeah, I know. But I really feel confident enough that I could defend myself. If somebody came at me and threw whatever." And I said, "You do realize that belt level is equivalent to like first grade in school?" No, I've got these techniques and stuff that you taught me, and what am I going to say? Right? Because what he was really looking for is a sense of confidence that he could handle himself, not he translated that as capability. Okay. But he came in looking for capability and adaptability and had certain past experiences um, that drove him to learn self-defense. But see, once confidence kicked in, then right, he had attained rank, and so to him, he had what he needed. Right. These folks tend to progress more slowly in visible rank, accolades, those kind of things. But because of their focus, they end up cultivating a deeper level of proficiency, knowledge, that flexibility, that adaptability they were looking for, that kind of thing, because they're on a quest to know. And again, we could be splitting hairs. People are going to define these however they want to, but this is just based on what I've seen. Okay, these folks, however, are generally the ones who endure long term and integrate the art into all aspects of their life, because the more they learn and the more they're exposed to, the more they realize what they can't handle yet. Because when a teacher demonstrates a technique, or they demonstrate, or they're teaching something, um, unless they're just doing the basics, right? With a punch or the kick or the grab or whatever, it's always the same, right? If there's an integration into like attacks from other sources, right? Like here's how. This past weekend, right during spring camp, one of my guys has been doing Taekwondo since he was 13, I think, 13, and he's just really good at some of these kicks. So I had him teach a breakout session, two actually. Part one was teaching people how to do one of these kicks. And he actually ran it like a Taekwondo class because we wanted students to understand the psychology and the mentality that's driven into the students, right? And the kind of personality type and student that's drawn to that kind of thing, right? But the other reason for teaching it was uh, if we're learning how to defend against it, then our uke should probably be able to throw something at us that we're actually going to see from somebody who's good at one of those kicks and not ish or shit. Okay? Because that just develops a false sense of confidence. So anyway, but again, there's this long-term integration kind of thing, and their orientation or their relationship with rank is more of a gauge or measurement based on where the teacher thinks they are, and it's not a prize to win. Okay? I'm being very general about this. Of course, there are exceptions, but there's that. Okay, so let's just shift here a little bit, but we'll stay in the same realm because I was talking about drop off points, right? Um, not just why most quit, but where most quit. Okay, so I'm going to play around with percentages. Okay, so if we look at when students join, right? So we'll just look at the join point, right? They've made that decision. They're not still floating out in the world, thinking about taking martial arts. They actually begin the journey. Okay. So that's our 100% point, right? Not 100% of people start the journey, but the people who do, that's our 100% mark. Okay. So everybody in the dojo, anybody that's ever started, okay. James knows anybody that's ever been in the dojo in an admin or an assistant function or whatever knows that I have every file. I keep a file on all my students. I have every file of every student that I've ever had since I started that process. And I probably taught for a year and a half before I started that. Okay. So since 1990 ish. Okay. So when somebody comes back to class or comes back to training and they left as a 10-year-old and they come back into the dojo, they're always surprised because I pull out their student file and go, oh, yeah, your last class was, because we track attendance as well. Okay. And because we use lesson plans and we have a set curriculum, a student has a really difficult time telling me that they never learned something because I can match it up to when it was taught. So I can't do anything about it if they didn't come to class. But if they tell me they didn't learn it, I can generally tell them when they learned it. Okay. So 100% start the journey. Okay. I already mentioned that the biggest drop off for most martial arts schools is within the first 100 days. So we have lots of procedures and things in place to make sure that a student feels comfortable, doesn't feel lost, those kind of things, because those are the biggest reasons people leave. For adults, the biggest reason across the board for most martial arts is they're not getting realistic self-defense. That's the biggest reason for adults dropping out. And it's not realistic as in like all out, like sparring and fighting and all that. It's that the attacks and things like that don't mirror what they see out in the world. Everything looks like it came from that martial arts system. So in our art, if people aren't seeing jabs or we're at least covering how to initially protect yourself against a jab by establishing that initial safe distance, or we're doing hook punch or lateral shin kicks or knees or something like that, groin kicks, those kind of things, then it doesn't look like what problems they saw and they were concerned about when they came in. So that whole first mod 1 is not just a sampling and a laying out of basics and then a sampling of things to come. Statistically proven, most attacks, right, that they make up 95 to 98% of physical assaults in the US. I believe it's US, Canada, and probably most of the Western world, with few deviations, right? Double hand grabs, bear hugs, those kind of things. They're all early stages, mod 1, right? Because people need to validate that that's what they were looking for. Now they're learning the ninjutsu, the ninpo taijutsu way of handling those things, right? But if all we did with ski and front stomp kicks, we wouldn't hold on to most people, because I already know that most adults leave within the first 100 days because they don't see what they perceive to be, right, the stuff that they're most worried about dealing with. So 100 days after that, if I can keep them past that, then the next drop-off point is somewhere between 4 and 11 months. But the reality is that, and this is across the board, across most martial arts. So if you're a statistic, if you're an instructor, you have a training group or a dojo or whatever, and your stats are better than this, mine are. But again, this is the average. Then fantastic. Okay. If not, soul searching and or, you know, perhaps it could be the marketing or the promotion. And I know even if it's word of mouth, it's still marketing. Then maybe we're saying things or explaining things or hyping things in a way that we're making promises that we're not keeping in the classroom, or because we're teaching seminar style like they do in Hombu, or like most of us experienced in seminars, or because we've got all this stuff, we just make it up and toss it out there. If we're causing confusion, or if we're overcorrecting, and people are left feeling like, well, what's the point, right? I'm never going to get this. I keep being told no. There's so much to fix. I fixed something, and now they highlight 3 more things that I'm screwing up. Whatever, right? There's lots of factors that can cause a student to quit. But let's get past all those, okay? So on the average, of the 100% who start, about 10% are still with it and are continuing past the first year. Okay, 10%. Okay, that's a 90% attrition rate. So anybody's running a dojo or a training group, if you're not constantly bringing in new students, then at a certain point, what's that old Agatha Christie book or story? And then there were none. Okay, and then it's always the fault of the students. They don't stick around. Well, this is a human being thing, right? Because across all long-term activities, pursuits, and whatnot, I have found that these numbers still match. Okay, of 100% that start, only about 10% are continuing past the first year. Of that, right, 100% that start, only 1 to 3% reach first degree black belt. That's a 97 to 99% attrition rate from the time they started. Okay, there's not much that a teacher can do about this. Okay, unless you're just going to give them a whole bunch of, bring in people that are rank oriented, give them a whole bunch of rank and whatnot. So anyway, that's why we have different tracks at the dojo. Everybody starts in one place, and then we vet them and invite them into the one that, but once people are on my Shinobi Kai program, the attrition rate in that program is so minimal, right? It's completely different because those people they're the different mindset, right? It's not about rank. I had somebody who just tested for a Shodan. I thought, because I kind of lost track of time, that he delayed his black belt test by about 4 to 6 months. And we just laughed about this the other day because he said, no, it was a year. Wasn't worried about it. He was worried about proficiency and capability and those kind of things, not can't wait to get my black belt. Well, shit. Go online at awma.com, Asian World of Martial Arts, or century.com, or tigerclaw.com, or whatever. Order a freaking black belt. Well, that's not the same. I didn't earn it. Yeah, most people, once I show you the numbers here, most people, if they could get it and believe that they earned it, they're more willing to take that. Nobody wants to be, how's this work? Nobody wants to be lied to. But they're okay if you tell them that they earned it. But as long as they don't know you were lying or you didn't water it down or whatever, whatever. Okay. So I'm not done yet. Okay. 1 to 3% of that 100% that join reach black belt. So don't feel bad if you didn't. Okay. Less than 1% of those who make black belt, less than 1% of those who started the journey, that 100%, right, continue after black belt. Okay. I know some people, a couple of weeks, month or 3, whatever. Okay. And the reason for that is most people focus on the black belt. Black belt is the goal in Western culture, right? That seems to be like, you got a black belt, man. You can kick people's ass. But in Japan, right, Shodan does not mean first level. Nidan, Sandan, Yondan, Godan, second level, third level, fourth level, right? Okay. We say degree, but that's like something from the Masons. Okay. But Shodan, the Shou, that kanji in Shodan doesn't mean first. So that's not first degree. That's not first level. That Shou means beginner, means head of class. Head, not high, right? In a classroom, the old traditional classrooms, the new students were set up front, closest to the teacher. Okay. And then as you learn more and were more self-sustaining with lessons and stuff, they moved toward closer to the back. But the Shou of Shodan means beginner. So you've done all that work before that. What the hell? I'm now a beginner? Yeah, because your training changes. There's a different way to approach things because it's more about scenario-based problem solving than it is about skill acquisition. Okay. So 100% start, less than 10% continue past the first year. Only 1 to 3% of those who initially started reach black belt. Less than 1% continue after black belt. And 0.1%, so 1/10 of 1%, commit for life. So if you have been around past 10 years, if the idea of quitting or never doing this again is like would never cross your mind unless the topic came up now, but then that's not going to happen. Okay. If you can do that in any endeavor, martial arts, who knows, whatever, anything that involves in development, proficiency, those kind of things, anybody does anything like that for life, it just becomes so much a part of who they are that they can't not do it. Okay. Congratulations. You have found yourself in the 1/10 of 1% of the entire population of the planet, past, present, and future. Okay. So instructors shouldn't get disappointed. It's human nature. Okay. The question is, what makes people quit? Right. So why they quit? Why do they quit? Right. The big 4 that I want to cover just for this one is 1, the journey becomes difficult or less entertaining. 2, life stressors cause them to let go of the very training that teaches endurance, right? They have to jettison something or make changes. And to most people, class is the thing that's in the way. But it's because they're focusing on class and the class time. they're not focusing on the endurance lessons and the ability to persevere and survive and flourish and thrive, and the lessons and how it allows not just survival but thriving, so that if but if I stay and I learn these things, then future and subsequent problems get easier and easier to handle. Okay. Another reason that people quit is what we call shiny object syndrome. Right? It distracts them, right, to easier, trendier pursuits, a different martial art, underwater basket weaving. Who knows? Whatever the thing is this week, this month, whatever. Okay. Um, because for a lot of people that want to earn their black belt that are rank oriented, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Whatever's going to keep them around is great. But what ends up happening is, because they're focused on the belts, is that they learn some stuff, they test, they earn a belt. Oh, there's this like dopamine rush, right? And then they learn some new stuff and they test and they get another belt. Okay. Dopamine rush. But it's not quite what the first one was. They got it, right? But with each subsequent one, right? Eventually it just becomes redundant. I learn new stuff, I test, get another belt. Okay. See, if we weren't just doing belts, right? Next time you get a shiny new car, dopamine rush, right? But the belt color, they can see the color, but it goes away, right? Because they're not focused on what that means relative to what they can do, or relative to the full thing, right? Capability, those kind of things. It's a stepping stone to this other, and it becomes redundant, and so it the dopamine rush goes away, right? And so they go looking for, just like when people get to black belt and they go to some other martial art, right? One of the reasons why people don't stay beyond black belt is they focused on the black belt. Another reason why they don't stay very long is because the lessons, the wins get smaller, right? But they get more significant because in the beginning, everything is new. So everything's a lesson. But the more we keep doing the same kind of moves, the same techniques that, or different techniques, but they look similar and whatnot, if we don't go broader or deeper or higher, and we're not focused on principles and concepts, then everything looks the same. Oh God, if I do that technique again, Jesus Christ, how many times do we have to do that? Right? Well, one, it's a model. What are we focusing on this time? Well, it's the same thing. Well, as long as to you it's the same thing, then yeah, you're going to get bored. Okay. But what we don't understand is, in the beginning, every new lesson is exactly that. It's a new lesson. But the longer we're around, the lessons get smaller. Like, I changed it. Like, my daughter was in for spring camp. Trinity was in for spring camp. And we did one fix on a foot position, and she has been trying to fix a knee alignment with her front leg for quite a while. And I looked at her and I said, stop trying to move your front knee. You're throwing your hips out of whack, right? Your back foot's in the wrong position for your body. Move your foot to this position, and the front knee problem went away. And it was like she won the booby prize at a county fair or something. Because it was this huge thing. But while the fix was small, while the lesson was small, that was going to fix every technique that required that little piece. So for the new person, the wins are big, but they're isolated to that particular technique. To the advanced person, the win is small, but its effect is virtually global across everything that they're doing. Okay. So another reason why people quit is they choose, or they tend to focus on what feels good or what looks good over what produces growth. Okay. So enduring the knowledge requires outlasting not only external challenges, but also our own nature. Okay. Let's take a little break here before we jump into something that hopefully won't rub people too much the wrong way. I have to be honest about things, because it didn't come from me; it came from master teachers in Japan. Okay, so James, questions, comments, complaints? You know how people quit these things, right? Click. This guy talks too much. When's he going to demonstrate something? See, Kuden is not about any given technique. It's not about any given strategy. It's not about any given tactic. It's the principles and concepts that this whole thing is based on. Right? So we can be successful against any challenge, against any conflict, against any problem, and not just survive, but thrive across all aspects of our lives. Okay? Because not all threats are somebody trying to punch you or stab you. Some is how you going to feed your family tomorrow because the money's tight. Okay? Anyway, what do you got, James? Anything?
No, I haven't seen anything come in.
Okay, so remember at the beginning I said, or near the beginning, I said that one of the things that caused frustration and while I wasn't looking for rank, what I couldn't understand is how people kept getting fucking promoted who kept making the same damn mistakes, who kept making their taijutsu never changed, right? And here we are busting our balls, really learning the nuances of these things, and then we learn something, and then we're given something else, and whatever, and then it wasn't like we weren't being promoted, but these people were literally being handed rank, okay, while other ones had to show proficiency. And sometimes, yeah, not quite ready for this yet. What I need you to fix is this, this, and this, and then we'll take a look at you, again next time I see you. Okay. It wasn't a competition for rank, like they outranked me and stuff. I'm like, how the hell is this happening? Right? This seems just completely backwards. Right? The people that are progressing in capability and proficiency and using this shit on the street and stuff like that, right, are just, we have to prove that we know it and have it and whatnot before the rank is given. But Joe Jackwagon it's being patted on the head, give sensei gifts and all that kind of stuff, and next thing I know he's 2 ranks higher. Right? So that took some enduring. That took some discussions with mentors and seniors and other teachers. And as a matter of fact, I remember having a conversation with Shrey Sensei. I was playing chauffeur one time, and I was discussing. I had some. I was discussing. I can't remember. It was some part of my training, something I was working on, and he said, Jeff Sensei, you understand very well. And I said, Sensei, no disrespect meant, but you say that to everybody, including people who are not doing it right, but they do something or they brag about something, and you say, you understand very well. And he goes, see, you understand. La 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 la. I just stuck my hands over my ear, and we both had a laugh over it, because whether I understood or not, what I said was, I have a difficult time trusting when you say that because I've seen you say it to these other people. And he said, "Yeah, but different people, different student. Okay, they only want to know that they're right. I tell them they're right. Okay, but I'm telling you that you understand." I said, but the words are the same. And he's you understand. See, you're doing it again, and we just laughed again. And but it was again one of those things, right? So lots of people think that they're right. Okay. Um, so what this really came down to, one of the master teachers, Sumaya Sensei, he's the only master teacher that I know of over the years that I've been training. Again, I've been training in this art since mid 80, early 81, um, who is directly descended in a samurai line. So he takes the whole respect and tradition and things like that very, very seriously. So we one time I was in Japan, and we had a class on handling the sword, knowing which is the omote side, which is the ura side. We spent a significant amount of time with the respectful passing of the sword from one person to another, because the sword in Japan, any given sword only ever has one owner at a time, including in sword shops. And so people were going and mishandling things, and word was getting back and whatever, right? And then we've got these other things going on where, well, I'll talk about some of these as we go, right? But um, the phrase that Sumaya Sensei said, or that he used, and made it very, very clear that we were going to ensure that there were less, and here's the phrase, embarrassments to the Bujinkan. So this is also something that has to be endured. Okay? Because I've seen the shit talking online. I've seen the bullshido guys, throwing in their 2 cents. But I've also seen the bickering and frickin' arguing on Facebook comments, forum threads before that, all kinds of bullshit. Sensei said this. No, he said this. No, he's, screw you. And the infighting and the outfighting and all that kind of shit. And then the extremes where these influencers in our art getting into pissing contests with people outside the art. And then next thing you know, they're arranging to meet someplace to actually fight it out. Not only are they making asses out of themselves, but they're making the art look bad. They're disrespecting Hatsumi Sensei, Takuma Sensei, the entire line, right? They think they're saving face and protecting ego and standing their ground and being a warrior and all that, except that the more they do it, the more they show that they don't fucking understand the art. Right? So where I'm going with this is this what I might call modern political shinobu, right? Enduring the politics, whether it's the argument over whether we are or not Kodyu, whether all kinds of shit, right? So for those who stay, for those who have been around longer and longer, there's more things to be endured than just confusion, than just internal dojo politics, than just my work schedule changed and I have to figure out how I'm going to get to class or be with my teacher or train or whatever. Right? As students mature in the art, right, we also encounter this a less discussed challenge, we'll call it, right? Enduring the actions of those who bring dishonor to the art, to the senior teachers, to the lineage, to the dojo itself. Okay. And we have to do it without becoming entangled in their bullshit, in their actions, because there's something else about human beings across the board. They tend to generalize. Okay. So, see, we have a clause in our membership agreement when people enroll that says, I agree to faithfully comply with the rules of the academy or the dojo and those of the tradition and the martial arts. And so students are quick to want to, initial that. And I go, wait. What that means is now that you're a member of the dojo, a member of this system, a member of this lineage, anyone who knows you or meets you and knows that you train will assume that as you are and as you act and as you carry yourself, that the rest of us are the same way. So what you're agreeing to is not disrespecting your fellow students, the art, your teachers, the grandmaster, the lineage. If you're still okay with that, you can now initial it. I don't let these things be vague because people like to pull shit. Or with time, they'll forget. Nobody told me that. Nobody said that I was responsible. See that? There's a huge difference between you not being told and you not remembering that you were told. And there's a huge difference between you being told and you know you were told, but now you're trying to blow smoke up people's ass because you can't control yourself. We have rules in the Bujigan. Okay? No criminal activity, no felons. There's a whole bunch of things. Can't be psychologically impaired. There's a whole bunch of things. Okay? Most people don't even know they exist anymore. That's how vague things have gotten. Okay? So some examples of this, what we'll call modern political embarrassment, right? Rank chasers who seek to discredit others, right? They need to be the top dog, so they're always putting other people down. Okay? I try to speak in vague generalities. If you read into it that it sounds like somebody or whatever, I'm speaking about a type, not people. Rarely, if ever, will you hear a name come out of my mouth in that direction. Okay, you would have to be very, very close to me, and we would have to be discussing a very specific topic. That's the reference point. James and I were absolutely having a conversation about one such person earlier because we were speaking about what, James? The fact that more often than we can count, I put out a program, and what happens?
A similar one appears.
Within a week to a month, yes?
Yep.
Okay. They don't even try to change the name of it that much. Okay. So, while I could take that as a compliment, I guess, right? When students see those kind of things, they don't know what the content actually is, or if that person actually how they came about it, or if they actually have the background in it, or whatever, or they just borrowed the idea and they're going to make up something. So they don't. Students can't judge, quality of content and whatnot. But this is a huge thing, right? The rank chasers tend to be competitive minded because it's about the symbol of. Okay. Doesn't matter, Hatsumi Sensei said. Doesn't matter what the other person's rank is if you can learn from them, even if their rank is way below yours. Okay. Another example of this is ego-driven practitioners who engage in these public pissing contests that I've talked about, right? Individuals who challenge others to fights, turning martial arts into a spectacle, not a strategy. Okay? And again, Sumaya Sensei calling this behavior embarrassments to the Bujinkan. That was a punch in the face. Not to me. It was a shock to me because the Japanese teachers have always seemed to treat Westerners very nicely, right? You understand, da, 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 da. But in the last couple of years before Hatsumi Sensei retired, things got more sharp. His ire was communicated through other teachers and whatnot, right? And what they really thought would often come out. Not generally in class. That was a rarity, but they pay attention. And so, like nobody's ever seen Hatsumi Sensei on Facebook or on social media. But I came to find out that he absolutely, as a ninja, kept track of what people were doing. So the thing here is that this political shinobu requires not just us enduring the conventional hardship, but being in this system and having to endure the immature actions of others, right? Having to endure the external repercussions. What's said about the art, what's said about Hatsumi Sensei, what's said about people because these other people are generalizing that if these dicks exist, then we must all be asses, right? And we have to be able to do this. We have to be able to endure it without losing our own path, without becoming complicit in their battles. Oh, the number of people that gravitate toward these online battles and fights and bullshit, taking sides. Holy shit. James, do you remember the one guy and his background was in question and all that kind of stuff? He wanted me to be a guest on his podcast at one point, and I got bullshit because I turned him down. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where he was involved in some pissing match with somebody, and
Right.
there would be entire, like, he had these groupies that were on his side, and there would be an entire, it was supposed to be a podcast episode, but it was nothing but everybody just slamming the other guy or other guy. Or remember that?
Yes.
Just a complete waste of fucking time. It was just nothing but an echo chamber. Just this mutual admiration society. And so those are the reasons I said no. That you don't stand for what I know. No, because to be a guest on that podcast, yes, it would have exposed me to the number of people that he had surrounding him and all that kind of stuff. But there's a reason that there's a phrase, guilty by association. No, 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 does not happen. Okay. So, but it's not just the losing our path. It's not just becoming complicit, right? If we can't endure this, this is where some students, they start second guessing, or the doubt kicks in, right? Are these people right? Are they right? No matter how much value they've gotten, no matter how much this art has proved itself to them, no matter how much they might have used it successfully and whatnot, these things start to creep in because we're not being mindful of mind. We're not we're not uh, we're not maintaining focus, right? So, and what ends up happening is people will quit because they don't want to be associated with that shit, right? They start second guessing, right? Did I make a bad choice, right? All kinds of things, and it just ends up being it's such a waste. It's such a I don't know. My mom used to say it, right? It's such a shame, but it's true. We've lost so many good people because of the actions and intentions and bullshit of people that needed to be the guy or the girl. Just wow. Okay. So again, in my own path, on my own path, I've had to learn to disengage from direct conflict with those who see growth as a threat. There's a saying in the entrepreneurial world: everybody's all for you. They're all rooting for you when you're trying, when you're climbing the ladder. But once you get there, you lose friends. People start changing how they talk. Right? My mom, when I was working on putting my stuff together and everything, is family members, right? Other people, right? Sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's very subtle, like passive aggressive kind of stuff. Hers is more on the passive aggressive side, but good for you. That's first in our family, that kind of thing. And then I make it, right? Things change, and one time I go to visit, and I, just happened to have gotten a new car. It wasn't a new car. I always get used cars, but fairly newer years. Anyway, I come pulling up, and look who's the boss, and look who's the boss man, and look who's swimming in money, can afford a new car, leaving all of us behind, and then other people, they'll want to start fucking sabotaging what you have, right? Trying to prove you wrong, okay, or trying to make it so that you're whatever, all kinds of bullshit, okay. So being able to disengage from these pissing contests, right? Um, because they see things as a competition, right? As long as you're below them, or maybe even side by side, everything's fine. At least on the outside, right? But as soon as you start pulling ahead, and it's not like you're trying to pull ahead. It's not like I was trying to pull ahead, right? I don't know if it was because I was practicing more, it was more intuitive. I don't know. They were practicing less. Who knows, right? Then the shit talking starts, or the backstabbing, or whatever, right? Okay. Now, here's the thing. I didn't learn or decide to disengage from these things because I'm passive. A lot of you know that already. Okay. It's strategic, because spreading energy across too many battles weakens focus and power. Okay. Anybody that knows history knows that was a huge downfall for Hitler in World War II, trying to fight on multiple fronts. You have a finite amount of time, materials, resources, supplies, manpower. Stretch yourself too thin, then you become ineffective, inefficient, right? Doing certain things or not doing certain things drains energy. Okay. Even practice. Too much, burn yourself out. Too little, you become lethargic, and the energy levels keep dropping, and it becomes harder and harder to do things. But spreading energy across too many battles, right? A hard enough time with personal growth and working on my own projects. I'm certainly not splitting my attention. Hey, did you see this thing online? Did you see? If it didn't pop up on my feed while I was trying to, see what I need to get caught up on or whatever? Nope. Okay. And even if I did, I look at it, shake my head, whatever, go about my business. I'm not, no. Okay. Again, just like in warfare, right? Leaders who open too many fronts invite their own defeat. Okay? And this applies in the dojo too, in professional life, in family life, and certainly in self protection. Okay? It's going to be one of these things that I'm focusing on for Whiteboard Wednesday, and then we'll be doing techniques and whatnot on Friday, right? Um, the tactic is the tactic that we apply to the opponent or the problem or whatever is a divide and conquer strategy, right? I break him up. I cause him to have to deal with too many things, right? Whether we do it to the body, ultimately it's to the mind. We again dove into this. I do it almost every class. Probably don't point it out every class, but it's just wired into our techniques. But I pointed it out during spring camp, right? That when we do certain things a certain way, it sends conflicting information to the brain, and the brain can't prioritize. It can't. The reason the guy can't escape is because the body locks up, because the brain locked up, because too much information came in that wasn't on one line. That's why we break 3 lines of balance at the same time. If we break 1 line of balance, the body instinctively will step to catch itself. You break 2, it's harder. It may stumble to catch itself. You break 3, it doesn't know which to fire. It doesn't know what to do, which muscles to go. And if it fires one thing, it feeds the other 2. That was kind of along the lines of the sword thing or the spear thing, where I was talking about this cutting thing earlier. When we engage with somebody, the omote lesson is when we engage with someone, we want to line things up. The proficiency is having the angle so that I cut here, so that takes this arm out of the fight. So if he's holding a staff, spear, sword, whatever, he's not holding on to it anymore. You're not cutting the hand off. You're just cutting the system to where nothing works from that point down. So he can't control it, right? But now the sword or the spear is from that point is lined up with this shoulder pocket. So I cut the wrist right into the shoulder pocket, so that disengages the other arm. And then as he falls away or the blade is pulled out, it's turned to cut the neck. Right? 1, 2, 3, done. Okay. But the other side of that lesson is that every engagement is at an angle and delivered in a certain way, that there's always 2 backups really close. So if he defends against the one, you've got 1 or 2 things that you can go to right from that point. So when we explore kata, the beginner explores the kata from step. This name is whatever, okay? And then they work some henka and all that kind of stuff. But their mind is still on do this, do this, do this. But if we could get to this level where we look at it and go, we're doing from this one here with this particular uke nagash. Yes, the kata says I got that, but what other 1 or 2 things do I have? Every time I engage, the thing that I'm doing, whether it's in uke nagash or the next shot to him or whatever, right? There should always be 2 other things that I could have tagged instead. So if he blocks that thing, or if he goes to block it, I can readjust and tag one of the other things. So I'm going to be doing an episode later down the line based on a saying we have here, at least in the States, and that I've experienced growing up and whatnot, is, and it's always done in a pessimistic way, right? Man, if it's not one thing, it's another. Yep, that's life. Okay, but I want him feeling like that. I know my students do, right? There's always something. Well, if there isn't, then you're dead, or you're losing fast and on your way. So get used to it. As a matter of fact, use it as a strategy. Okay. So anyway, again, there are always these external factors. right? It's our ability to adapt, our capacity and our capability, our ability, right, to handle it, not just to survive. Whew, got through that. These lessons are about, yes, how to survive it, but to accumulate the experience and to integrate the lessons so that when everybody else is screaming because Rome is burning, we're thriving. That's a whole different way of thinking. Okay? Most people think of perseverance and enduring as just keep going, man. No matter how hard it gets, just keep going. No, we keep going because the lessons, one, to keep going is a skill in and of itself. But to thrive, right, we keep going because there's going to be more lessons. There's going to be deeper lessons so that we can. But sometimes the things that stop us, it's not us. Well, I mean, we allow it to stop us, but there's all this other shit, right? Being associated with people because we're in the same system, same organization, same whatever, and they're just asshats. Okay? They can't control themselves, or they are in control of themselves. They're just ego driven. And I understand, right? If one feels small, if one feels weak on the inside, they're gonna be on a quest to not feel that way. I get it. I get it. But that's also part of what allows some of us to endure because we get it. We understand where it comes from. Okay? I'm just not playing the game. Okay? I have to focus and I have to. The endurance doesn't feel like endurance. It doesn't feel like I'm having to put up with stuff. I just know that it exists. So when people make certain comments or whatever, oh, you're in that thing. Oh, you do that. Oh, what do you think about this guy? I don't. I don't. Okay? If he starts affecting my life, I'll think about it just long enough to deal with the problem. Okay? But part of the way I deal with that and the thriving is doesn't matter if it's the trolls online making comments to my videos or it's these other people or they've somebody sent me a message one time as one of these guys that actually has almost gotten into fights a couple of times, right? He must have extra time on his hands, or did at that time. He went through my damn friends list. Oh, you're friends with this guy and stuff. You know he's got arrested for and dude. I have no idea who most of these people are and whatnot. They friend. I do a cursory check or whatever to make sure they're in ninjutsu or whatever. Okay, great, because I figure they want to get my information. Okay, but we all have friends on our list that we're not really friends with. It's like people being on my mailing list. The people that the closer they get, they're students, they're family members, they're whatever. Okay, so we have people like that, right? You think I like searched him out and like how would I know that he was arrested until somebody told me? Right? I'm not doing background checks on what do I have? 14, 15, 1,600 people on an email list. And how many people are followers on, James, do you know any of these numbers? How many people are followers on the different Facebook groups? Or I have no idea. So, but he sends me this scathing thing and I sent back 2 sentences that now he doesn't talk to me. But I wasn't aggressive. I was just very firm. I just applied logic. Like, how would I know that? Okay. And you're going to make me guilty by association because, like, I know everybody personally and their lives on my list. How does that make sense? And then I was met with silence. So, anyway. All right. So, let's see. What else do I have here? I'll come back to that. So we'll come back and wrap this up. So questions, comments, James, anything?
Greg from Australia jumped in, said hi.
Awesome. Oi.
Dave said people also quit because they decide they can't tolerate getting hit.
Yeah, of course. It's not entertaining anymore. Okay? There's an old saying, and I don't know. When I learned it, it was attributed to like an old Chinese saying or whatever. But um, man with a iron fist usually has a glass jaw. Like people like doing the techniques to people, they don't like having it done to them. Except you learn at least half the technique by being the uke. So, and you also learn by, enduring the pain and discomfort. One, what that thing does to the human body. So you're not just applying a technique, you know what it's doing to their system. We went into that a lot from the Kotoryu perspective. For those of you who missed it, um, and I might as well just before I forget, I reopened the doors on the pre-order for videos because what caught most students for this weekend, and they end up being really glad that they came, was that I didn't cover Kotoryu from the perspective of the what I call the Bujinkan hybrid. What I mean by that is uh, there are certain principles and concepts that Hatsumi Sensei has highlighted that kind of now permeate all the lineages, regardless of how those lineages originally developed. And Kotoryu is one of them. Okay, Kotoryu from the scrolls in its most classic sense does not have smooth transitions. It doesn't have that sense, the same sense of timing and angling and distancing and whatnot that most people are used to when they're doing Kotoryu, general Bujinkan way. Did we just lose a shit ton of people because I said Bujinkan hybrid? Ooh, sacrilege. So the videos for the weekend and stuff is going to have very the classical koto domination, uh, hunter's mentality, and I don't mean like waiting in a blind for the prey to go by. I mean hunting kind of thing. It's a very 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 different animal, and so anyway, but either way, for what I opened it today, James. Yeah, so today, tomorrow, Wednesday. After that, um, nope. And if we release them again, they'll be highly edited and not discounted because there's well over 10 hours of freaking video. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, the pain. Yeah. So, what can we learn from it? Those kind of things. But, there's that iron fist, glass jaw paradigm. But if you can't take the shot in training, the hell are you going to do? And see, that's another thing too. When people realize, like, first time a teacher says, look, this is not going to make you invincible. Right? Learning this stuff doesn't make you untouchable. It doesn't make you invincible. Right? We're all easy to kill. Right? The training is going to make you harder to kill. How about that? I mean, it pops people's bubbles. Right? And so they think that when they learn this stuff, the bad guy's never going to land a shot, never going to get punched, kicked, stabbed, whatever. Well, if you can't take it in training against somebody who wants you to do well and is not going nearly as far as, right? The hell are you going to do when, kind of reminds me of a question my mom asked me at the tail end of COVID when mask things had gone away and she was still wearing one or two masks at the same time and latex gloves. And there I was, my shorts and golf shirt, no mask, except I carried one just in case I went into some place where they were mandating it and I didn't want to be attacked by somebody who was, fearful. And she said, "Aren't you afraid?" And I said, "I've done my research and my peers and I have been through certain things in our lives. So, one, no, I'm not. Two, if you see us panic, you're already shitting your diaper. I don't know if she was wearing a diaper or not, but you get the idea, right? So, anyway, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's go ahead and round this out. Okay, so let's see. So again, just kind of summarize things, right? So the theme this week is in not just enduring the knowledge, but prioritizing. Right? Kind of mentioned this toward the end, right? What do we stand for? What's worth our attention? Those kind of things, right? So we explored kokoro shinobu, right? The mind capable of enduring, as more than just simple endurance. Okay, true shinobu is strategic resilience. Okay, knowing which battles to fight, which to bypass, right? And how to turn adversaries into neutral or even useful allies. Okay, I shared a story with my inner circle folks about uh, Hanzo Hattori, right, the head of the Iga clan, when Oba Nobunaga was assassinated, and there's this big story about several of our ninja clans getting Tokugawa Ieyasu, right, the guy that became shogun and ushered in the era of peace, well, enforced peace anyway, right, back to his castle from Oba Nobunaga's region back, right. I don't think a lot of people make the connection historically that Tokugawa was one of Oda Nobunaga's generals. So this butcher that was assassinated, right? Anybody attached to him, and Tokugawa always had a problem with how Nobunaga did things, but to not wake up dead, right? Because he got assassinated or whatever, and to strategically try to use this guy's power for his own benefit and whatnot, right? But either way, right, there were lots of Iga and Koga ninja families that would have been okay with him getting killed. Okay, and so getting Tokugawa from where Nobunaga was killed, from that enclave, back to his home region required them to pass through the Iga Koga region. And so I don't think people understand the full scope of that kind of thing. And we can talk about it some other time, but it'd be like getting the KKK and the Black Panthers to work together on a common goal. But either way, he got some folks to help, some families to help, right, to get through, and some acted as bodyguards to get him from point A to point B. Some acted as counter ambush kind of forces and whatnot, where they were in hiding and whatnot in certain regions. So if a direct assault happened, they could you know they could deal with it early, or counter it, that kind of thing. But see, there were other families that um, you know had some serious problems because, again, big history there where the Iga and Koga region, very small region compared to what Nobunaga was trying to do when he was trying to quote unquote unify Japan, but he was just trying to fucking take over, right? And he literally saw it as in the way. And so a whole bunch of stories and whatnot, right? The first assault on the area, his forces got their asses handed to him. So when he went in, the order was to kill every man, woman, and child. And so didn't make a fan of the area's residents, right? And so Tokugawa was not, because of association, right? And so anyway, what Hanzo Hattori did was negotiate with those families to get them to look, if you're not going to help, can you at least not hinder? Can you at least let us get him there so we can see? Like, I believe that he will be good for the country, but even right? I don't know for sure. So let me get him there. Let's see what he does from there. And if I'm wrong, I'll help you, right? But can you save your ire for another day? If you're not going to help, can you at least not hinder? And he got him to agree that way. And that's what we mean by turning adversaries, either getting them to be neutral or even getting them to be useful allies, okay, or passive allies, right? Just because somebody's not fighting for you or against you, right? If they're at least staying out of the fight, a ninja considers them to be passive allies. Okay? Neutral is still a good thing. Right? So enduring is not passive suffering. It's the patient, disciplined path to winning on your terms without becoming an accomplice to your own ass kicking. Okay? This is the kind of layered lesson, right, that we explore on a regular basis in Inner Circle, right? Not just how to perform techniques, but how to navigate the realities of training, leadership, modern life, right? Job, relationships, whatever. Okay. So, so let as a pre-frame for Whiteboard Wednesday, right? Let's look at this from a self-protection application. Okay. So in real world self-defense, the same principle applies. Excuse me. Right. Knowing when to engage and when to let something go by. Right. We don't have to do a freaking uke nagash against every punch that comes at us. Okay. That's chasing things. If we chase everything that comes at us, then we're easily suckered by a feint or by a psych out or whatever. Okay, so knowing when to engage, knowing when we have an uke nagash or an uke uch or whatever, right? Or we're just not going to be able to make it, so we let it go, or the angle's off, or the timing's off, or whatever. Just let it go. He's going to miss anyway, right? So we just wait for the next one. Okay. And again, I just mentioned this one, turning potential aggressors into passive allies, or at least non-threats. Okay. Avoiding multi-front battles that leave you vulnerable. In multiple attacker scenarios, most people think that our multiple attacker stuff looks like a Chuck Norris movie or whoever, where he's surrounded by 6 guys, right? And then they're just nice enough to only come in 1 or 2 at a time. And then everybody else waits to see if their friends get beat up or they whatever, right? No, in a real situation, they can all come at the same time. So in a multiple attacker scenario, right, we strategically evade a given attacker so that he ends up between us and the other ones, and we can keep everybody else in view and make it harder for them to get at us, right? We don't try to punch him, and then turn to punch him and hope the guy behind me doesn't punch me in the back of the head. It's draining. So how do we control that? It's the same thing, even if we're 1 against 1, right? And then the angling that we position at, right? Where we don't evade one thing and then leave ourselves in range for a kick or a punch on the other side, assuming we'll just be fast enough to not let that happen. Or we just always do soft training or slow training, and so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. We use positioning for decisive, efficient action, right, when necessary. But the positioning, right, is flexible, right? Again, just like that 3-in-1 kind of thing. Anything that we do, there's 2 backup options. Okay. So when we step to that naname angle, right, we always have 3 options. I evaded that incoming punch, but I could have evaded it and received it with an uke nagash, or I could have evaded it and counterattacked it, right? Moving to that angle, right, I can wait for the next shot to come. I can initiate my own, right? Or what else, right? So there's always these things, okay? So during Whiteboard Wednesday, we're going to be examining how this strategy applies to conflict management and positioning in self-defense situations. Okay. And then on Friday, of course, we'll do techniques that kind of work that out. So that should uh, round out at least this little snippet of these things. Okay. And again, as always, right, for those anybody that's ready to kind of move on from basic technique into this higher level strategy or adaptive strategy, right? Then you might want to take a look at the Ninpo Mastery or the Elite programs, um, because they offer training that fuses physical skill with tactical and psychological growth on a personal level, on a professional level, and of course on a self-defense protective level. Okay. But the point here is that most stop at proficiency. A few commit to mastery. The rarest become the leaders others eventually follow. Right. And that's what I was gifted with by my teachers, and that's what I'm trying to pass on. James, if you could drop put the link to the actually, you can just do it on the main page now. You can just do the onlineninjaacademy.com, because I just reformatted that entire page. It no longer looks like a Coursera page. The information about the three programs are there. Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up before I take last minute questions, the main premise here is that true endurance isn't passive suffering, right? It's the wisdom to know what to outlast, right? What to let go of, what to just not even allow to be on your radar. Okay, so again, just I know the kata make things look a certain way, but just because a kata shows he throws a ski uke nagash, ski uke nagash, the kata, the description of the kata says nothing about the speed of the punch, the intensity of the punch, the ground surface you're on, the stability you have, or anything like that. The unwritten, this is where the Kuden stuff comes in. We have to learn what requires our attention, what needs to be prioritized, what can wait for another day, what can, again, you can let go, right? And what can be jettisoned to get rid of because it's holding us back. Right? Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves fighting on multiple fronts. And not only do we not have the energy for that, but we also don't have the faculties to allow that kind of for that kind of awareness and whatnot. Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah. So again, if this topic, if this approach resonates with you or whatever, hopefully I'll see you on for Whiteboard Wednesday. And again, I'm not here to take anybody's students away from anybody else or whatever, but if you're ready for that next bigger step, then consider stepping into the deeper journey, right, of Ninpo Mastery. For those who've been around for a long time, I don't call things platinum or whatever, right? It's my inner circle program, but we've got a couple of different tiers. So tiers as in TIERS, not tears as in TEARS, although I can't promise they won't flow either because some shit hurts that bad. Anyway, that's it. So switch my screen here. All right, James, last minute questions, comments?
No, I don't see anything.
All right, cool. Well, we've been at this more than long enough. So, James, hopefully I'll see you in class tomorrow night. You've been working a whole lot of overtime, but hopefully I'll see you in class. And anyway, we will have information out for the upcoming fall camp. I know I just got done with one. I know another one's coming. So that and for Daikomyo-sai, which will be in January of 26. So the folks will be up with that. September 19th, I will be in Syracuse, New York, was it September 19th, 20th, Saturday the 20th, doing a seminar at Lemoyne University, or Lemoyne College, I guess is what it's called, right? So we'll have information about that as well. So anyway, and I have somebody else, two other people looking at dates and whatnot in completely different parts of the country for other seminars and stuff too. So if anybody's looking to host something, reach out, right? I've got a big old mailing list. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the area that we could probably put some tabi on the ground, I guess, right? So I think that's it. All right. So if there's nothing else, I will talk to everybody again next time, either on Whiteboard Wednesday, Friday Masterclass, or next episode of Kuden.
Get more of Kuden Radio, subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at online